I always tell you that before you can jump onto answering questions, you should always make sure that you go through the set of instructions and information given. So now the structure of the question paper under economics, it has 3 sections. Section A, we have questions that are compulsory and they carry 30 marks. While in section B, we have 3 questions. You're expected to only answer 2 questions, of which 1 question carries 40 marks. While in section C, you're expected to answer only 1 question that carries 40 marks. So now moving on to the second instruction and information, answer only the required number of questions, and answers in excess of the required number will not be marked. So now we have number 3, number the answers correctly according to the numbering system used in this question paper. So now this one, grade 12, is so important to be followed. Always make sure that you follow the numbering system answered on a question paper, in a question paper. I know most of you guys, you have the tendency of studying with section C, of which when you study with section C, make sure that you leave a space for other questions. Don't study with section C on the first page, because once you do that, it will be the indication that you would have failed to follow the instructions and information as expected. Okay, right. So now number 4, write the question number above as the answer or under each and every answer. Okay, right. 5, read the questions carefully. 6, start each question on a new page. I know most of you grade 12s, you have a challenge when it comes to studying a new question on a fresh page. Know that if you fail to follow the instructions, it means that you have failed to answer the questions appropriately. So 7, leave 2 to 3 lines between subsections of the question paper. So now also for 8, answer the questions in full sentence and ensure that the format, content, and context. Open 1.4, it reads as follows. If the value of the marginal propensity to consume is 0.6, then the value of the marginal propensity to save will be dash. Okay, right. So now this concept, I'm going to explain these 2 concepts, grade 12, marginal propensity to consume as well as marginal propensity to save. Why do I think there's a need to explain these 2 concepts? Because I've seen that most of you grade 12s, you have the challenge when it comes to the multiplier. And that multiplier calculation, if you still remember, it does engage in different set of the formulas so as to calculate the expected multiplier in each and every economy or nation or a country. So when we talk of the marginal propensity to consume, marginal propensity to consume, we refer to additional income that household choose to spend on buying goods and services. So this one should be clear, grade 12s, that marginal propensity to consume, it is that only an additional income. It has nothing to do with your salary. Okay, right. So now when it comes to marginal propensity to save, marginal propensity to save is nothing but an additional income that household choose to save or choose to put aside instead of spending on goods and services. Okay, right. So now, if you still remember, grade 12s, whenever we calculate the multiplier is always 1 minus the marginal propensity to consume, or also we can engage in this formula where we have 1 over marginal propensity to consume. If you check these 2 formulas, grade 12s, you can see that our denominator, we have MPC being equivalent to, MS, this is supposed to be grade 12s. We have MPS, which is equivalent to 1 minus MPC. So if you check in this regard, the MPC that we have 0.6. So now, when you substitute, you are going to have 1 minus 0.6, then 1 minus 0.6 will take us to 0.4. So if you check the options given, the appropriate answer in this regard is going to be A. Okay, right, grade 12s. So now moving on to the next question, grade 12s, we have 1.1.5 And 1.1.5 reads as follows. A limit on the quantity of goods and services that can be purchased from other countries is known as import dash. Okay, right, grade 12. If you still remember, in a previous lesson, I did explain different set of concept. For typical example, when you talk of a tariff is nothing but a certain tax that should always be paid to the government. Also, we have the incentive as well. If you still remember, we talk of whatsoever privilege that is actually given. Then we talk of a levy. Levy in this regard, we refer to a charge. So now we have a quota. A quota refers to a limit of quantity or a certain quantity that is allowed to be imported in a certain country. So it means in this regard, our appropriate answer is going to be D. Okay, right, grade 12. So now let's move on to the next question, grade 12. Our next question, we have 1.1.6, and this 1.1.6 reads as follows. A growth and development strategy that was intended to halve unemployment and poverty by 2014 was known as. So in this regard, our appropriate answer is going to be a B, which is Accelerated and Shared Growth Initiative for South Africa. So this is our appropriate answer in this regard, grade 12. Okay, right. So now moving on to the next question, grade 12, we have 1.1.7, of which this 1.1.7 reads as follows. The government's broad approach to industrialization is set out in the dash. So if you still remember, grade 12, I always tell you that you must go through the set of options given before you choose your appropriate answer. And I always tell you the reason why I advise you to do that is because most of the given options, they are pretty similar to one another, where one might end up making some silly mistakes. Okay, right. So now 1.1.7, our appropriate answer is going to be National Industrial Policy Framework. Okay, right. So now let's move on to 1.1.8. 1.1.8 reads as follows. The increase in the population of cities and towns through the movement of people from rural areas is known as urbanization. So in this regard, our appropriate answer is going to be C. Okay, so now at this juncture, we are done with 1.1. Then we are landing on 1.2. So our 1.2 reads as follows. Choose a description from column B that matches the item in column A. Write only a letter A to I next to the question numbers and examples given there where we have 1.2.1 to 1.2.8 in the provided answer book. So now grade 12, if you still remember, I always tell you that whenever you are answering this set of questions, make sure that you go through column A and then you create a picture of the given concepts in that column. So now after that, you can now move on to column B, where you are provided with the description, the characteristics, the features, the functions, the explanation, the definition, and the likes. Okay, right. So now grade 12, whenever we talk of the autonomous consumption, so autonomous consumption, we refer to that part of consumption where the household are just spending without having a proper income. So now if we check the options given in this regard, our appropriate option is going to be H, that says part of the household spending that is independent of the level of income. So it means that our 1.2.1 is H. Okay, grade 12, so let's move on to 1.2.2. 1.2.2 reads as follows. The monetarist approach. So now grade 12, if you still remember, this concept, it does fall under the business cycle. And when we talk of the business cycle, we refer to the fluctuations of the economic activities, or we refer to upswings and downswings of the economic activities. Okay, right. So now under this business cycle, if you still remember, we have two theories: the theory from this monetarist approach and the theory from Mr. Keynesian. So now, if you still remember, Mr. Keynesian states that in a market, for the market to be perfect, we do need a government intervention. So now, but these guys under monetarists, they're actually saying that we don't need the government to intervene when it comes to the flow of goods and services. Why are they actually saying that? They think, or they do believe that the market forces of demand and supply can stabilize the flow of goods and services. So if you still remember, these gentlemen or these guys under monetarist, they believe that the markets can be stable without the government intervention. So now if we check the options given in column B, then we see that the appropriate answer in this regard is G, that says maintains the view that markets are inherently stable. So it means that now our appropriate answer in this regard is going to be J. Okay, right, great talks. So now let's move on to the next question. The next question, we have 1.2.3, which is accountability. So now when we talk of the accountability, we refer to an explanation of one's own decisions and actions. When now you take charge of your actions or when you take charge of your decisions. So now if we check the list of options given in column B, the appropriate answer in this regard is going to be F. Okay, thank you, great talks. Now let's move on to the next question, which is 1.2.4. So 1.2.4 reads as follows: debt forgiveness. So now from the word or from the phrase debt forgiveness, this really means that a country or an organization is released from its obligation to repay a loan. So now remember, creators, as I said earlier, that whenever you are answering or you are faced with this type of questions, you should always make sure that you go through each and every option given in column B, or you go under each and every description given. So now, if we check, the appropriate answer for 1.2.4 is going to be B. When an organization or a country is released from its obligation to repay a loan, that is going to be debt forgiveness. So this country is being forgiven in terms of what? In terms of paying its obligations. So it means that this is going to be a bad debt because it is actually going to be written off before being settled. Okay, right, great talks. Now let's move on to the next option. The next option or the next question that we have 1.2.5 that reads as follows: economic union. So now, when we talk of the economic union, we refer to cooperation between countries so as to adopt to common monetary and fiscal policies. So now, if you check the list of the characteristics or features given, so the appropriate answer in this regard is going to be a C. Okay, right, great talks. So now let's move on to the next question. The next question, we have 1.2.6, which reads as follows: capital formation. So now when you talk of capital formation, if you still remember, under economics, this is nothing but an investment. Okay, right. So now if we check 1.2.6, which is capital formation, the appropriate answer for this question is going to be I, which reads the process of adding new assets such as machinery and equipment to an existing stock. So it means that our appropriate answer for this question is going to be I. Okay, right, great talks. Now let's move on to the next question. Next question, we have 1.2.7 that reads as follows: national research and development strategy. So now if you check the list of options given, the appropriate answer in this regard is going to be D, because the national research and development strategy focuses on using science and technology so as to promote industrialization in South Africa. Okay, right. So our appropriate answer in this regard is going to be D. Okay, right, great talks. So now moving on to the next question, we have 1.2.8, which reads as follows: consumer price index. So now the appropriate answer for this consumer price index is going to be A, that reads an economic indicator that relates to the cost of living. Why are we saying it does relate to the cost of living? Because remember, consumer price index is one of the measures of inflation. But now this one, it does take into account the basket of goods and services that are actually being purchased by the households or the consumers or those who do buy goods and services. Okay, right, great talks. So now let's move on to the next question. The next question that we are faced with 1.3, and this 1.3 reads as follows: give one term for each of the following description. Write only the term next to the question numbers. An example is given the 1.3.1 to 1.3.6 in the provided answer book. So abbreviations, acronyms, and example are actually not being considered in this question. Okay, right, click 12. So now we have 1.3.1, of which 1.3.1 reads as follows: the withdrawal of money from the circular flow. So now whenever we talk of the withdrawal of money from the circular flow, remember we talk of the leakages. But because when we talk of the inflow of money into the economy, it is nothing but injection, while the outflow of money from the economy is nothing but the leakage. So this is nothing but leakages. Okay, right, great talk. So now let's move on to 1.3.2. 1.3.2 reads as follows: a summary of the various indicators of the same type into a single value. So now, if you still remember, grade 12, the different set of the indicators that we have. Okay, before I jump into types of the indicators, let me first explain the word indicator. When you talk of a weight indicator under economics, we refer to a sign where an economy is heading or a sign where a nation is actually heading. So now, one of those signs that we can have a leading sign, which is leading indicator. And this leading indicator is a sign or an indicator that changes before an economy has actually changed. And we also have a lagging indicator, and this lagging indicator, it is a sign that shows a change after the economy has actually changed. And then we also have coincident indicator, and this coincident indicator is a sign that changes at the same time with the economy. And then we have composite indicator. Composite indicator, yes, it is the indicator that the question is looking forward to, because composite is the indicator that combines all the indicators, namely lagging, leading, as well as coincident. Okay, right. So in this regard, our appropriate answer is going to be composite indicator. Okay, right, great thoughts. So now make sure that whenever you are dealing with this set of questions, you do understand the content of economics or the context of economics. Okay, right. So now moving on to 1.1.3, it reads as follows: the exchange rate is determined by the market forces with the intervention by the central bank. So the exchange rate is determined by market forces with intervention by the central bank. The fact that the central bank in this regard, it is actually now being part of this forex. It means the appropriate answer in this regard is going to be fixed exchange rate, because we have the floating or free exchange rate where there's no central bank intervention. So this one is going to be fixed exchange rate. Fixed exchange rate. Okay, right. So now moving on to 1.3.4, grade 12, it reads as follows: the increase in the capacity of the economy to produce more of the goods and services. So we are talking of the increase. If you still remember, grade 12, we have the concepts of economic growth and economic development. When we talk of economic development, we refer to an improvement in terms of the standard of living for the household. And then when we talk of the economic growth, we check the improvement in terms of the production of goods and services by the businesses. So in this regard, it means that our appropriate answer rate, because we have the floating or free exchange rate where there's no central bank intervention. So this one is going to be fixed exchange rate. Fixed exchange rate. Okay, right. So now moving on to 1.3.4 grade 12, it reads as follows. The increase in the capacity of the economy to produce more of the goods and services. So we are talking of the increase. If you still remember grade 12, we have the concepts of economic growth and economic development. When we talk of economic development, we refer to an improvement in terms of the standard of living for the household. And then when we talk of the economic growth, we check the improvement in terms of the production of goods and services by the businesses. So in this regard, it means that our appropriate answer is going to be economic growth. Why economic growth? Because economic growth, it takes into account an improvement in terms of the production of goods and services. Okay, right, grade 12. So now moving on to the next question, we have 1.3.5, of which 1.3.5 reads as follows. The processing of natural resources into finished products. The processing of natural resources into finished product. This is nothing but manufacturing. This is manufacturing, because manufacturing, that's where we process what vectors of production to finish the goods and services. Okay, right. So now grade 12. So now let's move on to 1.3.6. 1.3.6 reads as follows. The lowest interest rate charged by commercial banks to their best clients. So if you still remember grade 12, we have different set of interest rates. We have the repo rate. The repo rate, it is the interest rate that's the South African Reserve Bank or the central banks do charge commercial banks whenever they take a loan from them. So now also we have the commercial banks. So these commercial banks, they do as well charge interest whenever their clients or the individuals or the households take a loan from them. Commercial banks, we refer to the likes of FNB, the likes of Capitec, the likes of Standard Bank, the likes of Times Bank, and many more. So now the interest rate that we are referring to in this regard is going to be the prime interest rate. Prime interest rate. Okay. We are going to discuss section B. And if you still remember, I always tell you that whenever you are faced with this section, make sure that you take your time to go through all the set of questions given before you can select the answer, or before you can select the question that you feel comfortable with. Okay. Another thing that you must always take into account, grade 12, is that each and every question under this section carries 40 marks, and the expectation is to spend 30 minutes on each question. Okay, right. So now, if we check our question 2, in particular 2.1, it reads as follows. Name any two vectors of production. If you still remember, grade 12, the vectors of production that we have land or natural resources. We also have capital. We also have labor. We also have entrepreneurship. Okay, right, grade 12. So now, why are these called vectors of production? These are called vectors of production because there's no processing or there's no manufacturing of goods and services that can actually take place without the use of these vectors. So that is why they are actually being considered as the backbone of production process. Okay, right. So now moving on to the next question. Next question, we have 2.1.2, and 2.1.2 reads as follows. Why is the inflation rate high during the prosperity phase of a business cycle? So now grade 12, if you still remember, when we talk of a business cycle, we refer to the fluctuations of the economic activities, or the downswings and upswings of the economic activities. So now here we have what we have our trend line, and then here we have our turning point, which is upper, and it's a peak, and then here we have our lower turning point, which is a trough. So if you still remember grade 12, so now when an economy takes off from a trough to the trend line, this is actually called the phase of recovery, because the economy is recovering from trough. So if you still remember, whenever the economy is under the trough, it means that businesses are not attaining enough profits, and also the households' standard of living is not good at all. Also, we check on the side of the government. It also indicates that the government is not in a position to collect enough tax proceeds or enough tax revenue. So in that regard, it means that it is going to be a serious struggle for the government to end up fulfilling its mandate of offering grants. Okay, right. So now the moment these economic activities take over from the trend line towards the peak. So in this regard, we are saying that this is a prosperity phase. And then the moment the business activities are classified under the prosperity phase, it means that the economy is doing marvelously right or good. Okay, that is the indication that there is going to be experience of the economic growth as well as the economic development. So it means that at this level, we have most of the businesses having a lot of profits. We also have the household standard of living, which is good. That is the indication that businesses are making enough profits to an extent of creating job opportunities for households. And also businesses are going to be in the position to pay tax charges as expected by the government. Okay, right. So now the question wants to know, why is the inflation rate high during the prosperity phase of a prosperity phase of a business cycle? As we said it, grade 12, we said that this is because the market participants, are doing, I told you, when we talk of the market participants, we are actually referring to the household, businesses or firms, the government, as well as the foreign sector. So it means that these market participants are doing fine. So we are saying that households as one of the market participants, and also firms as one of the market participants, and as well as the government, they are making a good initiative. So market participants are doing fine. So it means households or firms are making a lot of profits, and there is more of the exports than imports. Okay, right. So here we are saying that these households are doing fine. It means that there is a good standard of living for this household. Okay, right. So now, in that regard, it means that the economic activities are doing extremely well, and there's going to be a lot of money in circulation. And the moment there's a lot of money in circulation, it means that currency is going to lose the value. And the moment it loses value, it means that it is going to be a struggle on the side of consumers to buy goods and services, because the prices or the general prices of goods and services is going to persistently increase, or it is going to continuously increase. So in that regard, it means that it's going to be a challenge for the household or as well as the customers to buy goods and services. In the same manner, in that regard, it means that as well, businesses are going to struggle when it comes to buying of factors of production so as to process or manufacture goods and services. So now this is very apparent, or this is very clear that the cost of vectors of production on the side of the business is going to be very costly. Okay, right. So now let's move on to the next question, grade 12. The next question that we have 2.2, and 2.2 reads as follow. Start the graph below and answer the questions that follow. So grade 12, the moment you are given a diagram like this under economics, you should always make sure that you identify yourself with the concepts given, and also make sure that you understand the axis given. Either it can be the y-axis or axis. So if you check on our y-axis, we have monetary value in millions, and also on our axis we do have number of years from 2018 up until 2021. Okay, right, grade 12. So now the first question reads 2.2.1, and then it needs you to identify the year in which South Africa recorded the highest value of exports. So also you should be in the position to know the keywords or the key terms there. If you check, this is how exports are symbolized, and also this is how imports are symbolized. So it means that this represent our exports, and this represent our imports for 2018, and also for 2019 we have the number of exports we have, and as well as the number of imports. And then if we check as well for 2020, we as well have the exports there and the imports up until 2021. As well, if you check the behavior of the graph, this behavior of the graph, it is actually constant from 2018 to 2019. It means that there's no change. The volume of exports and the volume of imports for the years 2018 and 2019, they've been equivalent, or they've been the same. So, but starting from 2019 to 2021, there's been an increase in the level of exports, or the number of exports, or the volume of exports amongst the different set of countries. As well, if we check, the graph keeps on increasing from 2020 towards 2021, which is the clear indication that there's been an improvement in terms of the exportation of goods and services. Okay, right. So now, if you check here, you have to identify the year in which South Africa recorded the highest value of the value of exports, and this is how we denote our export. And this is the graph of the exports, exports. So now, if we check here, the highest number of exports that we have is for 2021. So it means the appropriate answer in this regard is going to be 2021. Grade 12, if you still remember, the moment a question says identify, the expectation is to go straight to the given set of a diagram, or a given set of scenario, or a given set of a cartoon, so as to pick the answer there. It can actually say that identify when there's no answer given. Okay, right. So now moving on to the next question, we have 2.2.2, and 2.2.2 reads as follows. Name the account in the balance of payments that records portfolio investment. If you still remember grade 12, the only account that we can actually record the portfolio investment is under the financial account of the balance of payment. If you still remember, under this balance of payment, we have to record the transactions that are in line with the exports and imports of goods and services among different set of countries. So under this balance of payment, we have different set of accounts that records a different set of transaction. We have the likes of current account, we have the likes of financial account, we also have the likes of the capital transfer account. Okay, right. So now let's move on to the next question, grade 12. The next question reads as follows. We have 2.2.3. briefly describe the term balance, the trade balance. So now, if you still remember, grade 12s, when we talk of the trade balance, we refer to the value of exported goods plus net good exports less the value of the imported goods. So we simply mean that in this regard, we refer to the value of the exported goods, the value of the exported goods, the value of the exported goods plus good exports. Good exports less the value of the imported goods. Of the imported goods. Okay, right, grade 12s. So now let's move on to the next question, grade 12s. The next question we have 2.2.4, and this 2.2.4 reads as follows. Explain the impact of electricity shortages on export volumes in South Africa. So grade 12, if you still remember, the moment we refer to export, we check or we take into account the selling of goods and services that has been locally produced in that particular economy, but instead of being consumed in that particular economy, they are now being sold to the rest or the spheres of the world, meaning they are actually being sold to other countries. Okay, right. So now, if we check the question says the impact. And if the question says the impact, it means that the expectation is to come up with both negatives or positives, meaning with both advantages or disadvantages of the electricity shortages on goods or on goods and services that are supposed to be sold to other countries. Okay, sure. Okay, right. So now, in this regard, if there is a problem of load shedding or there is a problem of electricity shortages, that is the indication that for some of the businesses to produce or to manufacture goods and services is going to be a struggle. Why a struggle? Because most, if not all, of the businesses, they normally rely largely on electricity as an input when it comes to processing or manufacturing of goods and services. So the moment there is electricity struggle or there is a lack of electricity supply or there is shortage of electricity supply, that means that businesses are going to experience a challenge now when going to produce sufficient goods and services. So it means that in this regard, the volume of exports are going to decrease. Why decrease? Because now businesses are struggling to produce sufficient or efficient or enough goods and services. So we are saying that the volume of exports decrease. Okay, right, grade 12. So now moving on to the next question. The next question we have 2.2.5. And 2.2.5 reads as follows. How can the South African Reserve Bank reduce the balance of payments? So remember, grade 12, when we talk of the balance of payments, we are actually referring to a statement of a country's trade and financial transaction with the rest of the world over a particular time period. So it means that as well, in the South African balance of payments, one should always take note or take into account that we take the summary of the transaction of South African household firms as well as the governments. So now in this regard, if we have more of the imports than the exports, that is an indication that South African economy is struggling. And it is not advisable for each and every economy to experience most of the imports than the exports. It means in that regard, that country is failing to produce enough goods and services to supply to its inhabitants as well as selling to the other spheres of the world. So now, for the South African Reserve Bank to reduce the BOP or balance of payment deficit, it means the South African economy has to actually aim at investing in some of the SMMEs or small, medium and micro enterprises so as to boost economic growth, meaning that the volume or the volume of goods and services that are being produced locally, they are going to increase as per firm. As well, the South African economy should make sure that they encourage foreign direct investment so as to boost the creation of employment opportunities for the household or its inhabitants. So in that regard, if the households are in a position to come up with standard of living, then it means in that regard, an economy is going to experience what you call economic development. Okay, right. So now moving on to 2.3. 2.3 reads as follows. Start the table below and answer the questions that follow. So now we are given this different set of transactions. We have national accounts for South Africa at current prices. We have the item. We have the compensation to employees. We have net operating surplus, consumption of fixed capital. We also have cross value added. The figure is there. We have taxes on production. We have subsidies on production. We have cross value added at basic prices, and the value is there. That is unknown. We also have taxes on product, also subsidies on product as 14, as well as gross domestic product at market prices. Okay, right. So grade 12s, without even struggling to identify the type of national account method that has been used to calculate GDP. Because of this word compensation of employees, it means that this is what employees are earning on their daily execution of duties, or after executing duties, or after completing a job, or after a job has been done, or after a service has been rendered. So because of this compensation, it shows that there's earning take place. So the moment there's earning take place, this causes us to what we call income. So now let's check the different set of questions given so as to identify if we can actually have the appropriate answer from the given set of transactions given in a table. Okay, right. So now the first question reads as follows. 2.3.1, identify in the table below the method used to calculate the gross domestic product. So the method that has been used here, as I've explained, it is the method of income. This is nothing but income method. Okay, right. So now let's move on to 2.3.2. So 2.3.2 reads as follows. Give one example of taxes on product. So if we check taxes on products, we are going to have the likes of value added tax. We are also going to have the likes of import duties, and we are also going to have the likes of tax on exports. Okay, right. So we have tax on exports. Okay, right. So now moving on to the next question, we have 2.3.2. 2.3.2 reads as follows. Briefly describe the term subsidy on production. So the moment we talk of the subsidy on production, this is nothing but the subsidies that are not linked to a specific goods or service. E.g., we or an example, we have subsidy paid on employment. So we are saying that these are subsidies that are not linked to specific goods or service. So we have an example. So an example, as I said earlier, that we can have the subsidy paid on employment. Okay, right, grade 12. So now let's move on to the next question. The next question we have 2.3.4, and 2.3.4 reads as follows. Why is it important for a country to prepare national account aggregate. So now the country should prepare national account aggregate because it is or it should take into account measuring economic growth from one year to the next. Also, it should determine the standard of living in that particular country. So we are actually saying that this is measuring economic growth from one year to the next. And also, it means that we have determining the standard of living in a country. Okay, right. So now moving on to the next question. The next question we have 2.3.5, where you're supposed to calculate the gross value added at the basic prices in the table shown above. So now if we check on the table shown above, what we should calculate is the missing value, which is A. Then expectation is to deal with these figures, meaning cost of value added at factor cost. We also have taxes on production. We have also subsidies on production. So it means that we are going to add this taxes on product. Also, we are going to subtract subsidies on product. So in short, we are going to say that we have what we have. We have 5, 4, 5, 3 plus 132 minus 12, and this takes us to what it takes us to 5,573 billion. So meaning we can say therefore our A is equivalent to 5,573. So now this is going to be our appropriate answer. Okay, right, grade 12. So now let's move on to the next question. The next question is expecting us to come up with what? With the discussion between specialization as well as mass production as effects of international trade. So in this regard, we are going to explain what is this specialization, and also we are going to explain what is this mass production. We are as well going to explain what is this international trade. So in this regard, it means that we are going to check mass production. We are also going to check the international trade. So now, if you still remember, whenever we talk of the international trade we refer to buying and selling of goods and services amongst the different set of countries. Also, when we talk of the mass production, we check the production of goods and services in larger quantities. And then we as well have specialization. So specialization is where an economy is actually concentrating on producing a certain goods and services as compared to other countries. So if you still remember, different set of countries to have different resources. So in that regard, a country with higher resources, or a country that can actually produce a certain resource, engaging less expenditures or less expenses. So in that regard, it means that that particular country should focus largely on producing that particular kind of good and product. Why are we saying that? Because for that particular country to specialize in production of that particular product or that particular service, it means that it doesn't spend much on the inputs or on vectors of production, largely on namely labor, capital, entrepreneurship, as well as natural resource or land. Okay, right. So I did explain what is this specialization, and I did explain what is mass production, and I did explain what is this international trade. So now what we are going to check, we are going to check the effect of specialization on international trade. And we are also going to check the effect of mass production or international trade. So now when we talk of the effect of what the effect or the results of specialization on international trade is that specialization has actually brought an increase in terms of enhancement of different set of skills towards a labor force in different set of countries. Also, this specialization has actually came up with larger creation of job opportunities for businesses or firms. Also, for the countries to specialize in the production of a certain product, it means that that particular country is going to have more of the exports than imports. So in return, that is going to boost a positive influence on national income. Okay, right. So now let's check the effect of mass production on international trade. If we have the mass production and or in line with international trade, it means that that particular country or that is able to process goods and services in larger quantities. It means that it is going to sell to other countries. So the moment it does engage in efficient supply of goods and services to other countries, so that is going to help that particular country to gain what we call a competitive advantage when it comes to production of goods and services and compared to other countries. Okay, right. So now moving on to the next question, which is 2.5. 2.5 needs how can the business cycle influence the use of fiscal policy in an economy. So now I'm going to explain this concept of the economy as well as the business cycles and the fiscal policy. When we talk of an economy under economics, we refer to four market participants or four market decision makers, namely household, firms or businesses or governments, as well as the foreign sector. So now, when we talk of the fiscal policy, we refer to a policy where an institution of the state or an institution of the government is the one in charge of this policy. And the moment the government uses this policy, it is when it does want to stimulate the flow of goods and services. So now the instruments that the government normally use whenever it wants to stimulate the flow of goods and services, it does use the instrument of the government spending as well as the taxation. So it does depend whether the economy is under the drought or whether the economy is under the peak. So the moment the economy is under the drought, it means that now the government has to spend more and then reduce taxation. But the moment the economy is under a peak or boom, it means that economic activities are doing very well. So it means in that regard, the government has to lower its spending, but increase taxation. Okay. Also, we have the business cycle. If you still remember, when you talk about the business cycle, grade 12, we refer to upswings and downswings of the economic activities, or we refer to fluctuations of the economic activities. Okay, right. So now if you check, a question needs us to identify or to outline how can business cycle influence the use of the fiscal policy. So now, as I said, that it does depend on the status of the economy. Okay, right. So now let's move on to the next question. The next question that we have question 3. And then if we check the question 3 that we have 3.1.1 up until 3.5. Okay, right. So now 3.1 reads as follow. Give any two examples of basic services provided by the government. So what are the basic services that are provided by the government? Number one, the government issue out what we call grants. It does issue what we call grants. Does issue what we call grants. Does issue what we call grants. And also the government, one of the examples of basic services that are provided by the government is what we call subsidies. We have subsidies and the like. Okay, right. So now let's move on to the next question. The next question that we have 3.1.2. 3.1.2 reads as follows. How can the integrated manufacturing strategy promote industrialization in South Africa? So still remember, grade 12, the moment we talk of the industrialization, or the moment we talk of an industry, we refer to group of firms that sell the same product. So in this regard, it means that here in South Africa, we have different set of industries. We have businesses that are selling clothing, and then those businesses are categorized as a clothing industry. And you also have businesses that are selling food, and those businesses that are selling food are categorized under food industry. And we also have businesses that are dealing with extraction of minerals, and those particular businesses that classified under what we call a mining sector. Okay, right. So now, mining industry. Okay, so now it tells if the government, if you still remember, the government, it is trying to spend or invest more on this industrial development. Why? Because it does have a belief, or it does have that different mindset that the moment they spend much in this industry, then there is going to be a creation of employment for its inhabitants, and as well there is going to be economic growth as well as economic development. Okay, right. So now let's move on to the next question. The next question we have 3.2.1 and 3.2.1 reads as follow. Study the cartoon below and answer the questions that follow. So if you check the cartoon grade 12 that we have South Africa's growth and development policies. So now remember, under economics, the moment we talk of growth, we refer to what? We refer to improvement in terms of production of goods and services by businesses. Also, the moment we talk of development, that means we refer to improvement on goods and services. Improvement on the standard of living for household. So now, if we check the given cartoon, we have different messages given there, and then we also have a symbol of a human being there. So now, the message given, we need to address the challenge that Black economic empowerment face, and then we also have broad-based Black economic empowerment. So we also have corruption there. This is corruption, and then we also have Employment Equity Act, and then we also have South African businesses. Also, how about some health? So now we also have this given set of message. Okay, grade 12, know that before you can even jump onto answering any question, you should always make sure that you understand the message that is actually being portrayed by the given cartoon. Okay, right. So now checking the question in line with 3.2.1, it reads as follows. Identify the redress policy that aims to eliminate an unfair discrimination in South African workplace. So now, if you still remember grade 12, so now the moment we talk of what, the moment we talk of what we talk of elimination, we talk of unfair discrimination, we also talk of the workplace. So these are the key concepts that you should always take into account, as well as the redress policy taken into consideration. Okay, right. So now the question reads, identify a redress policy that aims to get rid or to eliminate unfair discrimination in South African workplace. So now, if you still remember, when we talk of unfair or when we talk of the discrimination, it means that different set of individuals at the workplace, they are not treated in the same manner, or they are not treated equally. It be given what the color of their skin, it can be given the language that they speak, it can as well be in line with the age, it can as well be in line with the gender. So there can be different set of reasons why individuals shouldn't be unfairly treated. Okay, so now the appropriate answer that we have for this question, as the question says, identify. So now we have to go to the scenario given, and then we come up with the answer. So our appropriate answer is Employment Equity Act. So this is Employment Equity Act. Okay, right. So now moving on to the next question, we have 3.2.2. Name one measure used to promote the efficiency of the market. So now, grade 12, what do we mean by the efficiency of the market? And then as well, we have to check the measure that we can put into account, as well as how to enhance or improve the efficiency of the market. What do we mean by the efficiency of the market, or a word efficiency? When we talk of a word efficiency, it means that there are no, or there's no wastage of resources in that particular production of goods and services. Also, it means that whatsoever businesses have actually manufactured, or whatsoever businesses have actually processed with the aim of supplying, does match with the level of demand for those goods and services. So now, if we check, the question needs what? Needs one measure used to improve the efficiency of the market. And when we talk of the markets, grade 12, still remember the markets, we refer to a platform where goods and services are being bought and sold. And this market that you are referring to, it means that transaction can actually be performed in different set of manner. Transaction can be performed in a physical place where we say we have a physical market as well. Transactions can be performed electronically. That's where we say we have electronic market. Okay, right. So now, grade 12, you should always bear in mind that in a particular economy, or in any set of economy, we should always try by all means to make sure that demand is always equivalent to supply. Why should it be the case? Because the moment demand is different from supply, or the moment there is mismatch between demand and supply, this will result in market failure. This will result in market failure. So that is why it is always advisable to make sure that demand is always equivalent to supply. Okay, right. So now let's check 3.2.3. 3.2.3 reads as follows. Briefly describe the term economic development. Grade 12, when we talk of economic development takes into account the approach towards the household. So it means when we talk of the economic development, we should always make sure that we take the household into account. Any argument that you are putting on the table, or any argument that we are actually raising our opinion or our force towards, should always address the issue of the household. So when you talk of the economic development, we refer to improvement in terms of the standard of living of the household. Okay, right. So now let's move on to the next question, grade 12. The next question that we have 3.2.4, that is as follows. How can the government use taxation to promote business efficiency? So guys, remember, when we talk of a word efficiency, or when you talk of a word government, and when you talk of a word taxation. I'm going to explain what they do mean. Government, we refer to a state, or we refer to a different set of bodies that are always occupying the driver's seat of the economy. So then the government comprises of different set of bodies like the society. Society forms part of the government. We also have bureaucrats. Bureaucrats also form part of the government. We also have we also have politicians. Politicians as well form part of the government. We also have chiefs and the like. So taxation, we refer to a levy that the government normally put on the consumption of goods and services, and a levy or a charge can either be direct or indirect. Okay, so efficiency, as I did explain earlier, grade 12, that when we talk of efficiency, we always check where resources are not wasted. So how can the government use taxation to promote business efficiency? Meaning, how can the government use taxation to make sure that businesses don't waste resources? So now, what the government can actually use, if you still remember, taxation is one of the instruments of the fiscal policy, and fiscal policy is the policy that the government normally uses so as to stimulate the flow of goods and services, also as to stimulate the economy. So now it does depend whether the economy is at a boom or a trough that will call for the use of this fiscal policy in line with its instruments, taxation, and government spending. So the moment businesses are doing fine, so if they are doing fine, meaning they are successful, meaning they are collecting enough profits, it means that in that regard, the government has to charge more of the taxes, and then they must lower the government spending. So if businesses are generating enough profit, then tax charge is going to be high. Also, if businesses are generating less profits, in that regard, it means that the tax charge is going to be less. Okay, right. So now let's move on to grade 12 to the next question, which is 3.2.5, and it reads as follows: explain the challenges in the implementation of broad-based Black economic empowerment. So I'm going to explain to you this broad-based Black economic empowerment. This broad-based Black economic empowerment, it is one of the acts that ANC drafted in 1994 after it has won the election. Okay, right. So now Black economic empowerment, broad-based Black economic empowerment was to address the issue of the well-disadvantaged Black people. Remember, during the apartheid era, before 1994, Black people, they were mostly disadvantaged. So the moment ANC came into power, it did make sure that it revised those legislation, just like the one like the broad-based Black economic empowerment, where it has 3 pillars, and where it says that Black people should always as well have managerial position. Also, Black people should own, meaning lands. This also ownership. Also, it does address the issue of skills development, the skills development of Black people. Also, it does address what the supply of goods and services by Black people, supply of goods and services by Black people. By Black people. Okay, so now these are the 4 major pillars of the broad-based Black economic empowerment. Before ANC came into power, or before 1994, Black people were not given the platform as well to occupy managerial positions. So also Black people were not given any chance of ownership. Also, Black people were not given any chance of skills development. Also, Black people were not given a chance to supply goods and services. So now, broad-based Black economic empowerment came to address or those issues that I've actually mentioned. Okay, right, grade 12. So now let's move on to the next question. The next question, you have 3.3. So now, if you still remember, the moment you are given this set of a scenario, you should always make sure that you go through the given scenario to understand the message that has been portrayed in that scenario. Okay, right. So now study the graph, the extract below, and answer the questions that follow. So foreign direct investment in South Africa compared to other African countries, the potential attractiveness of South Africa is high. Foreign investments increased over the years and are responsible for job creation and as well as wealth creation, economic growth. So most of the foreign direct investment inflows are directed to financial, mining, manufacturing, transportation, and retail sectors. So Beijing automotive industry, BMW, Nissan, Ministry Renewal, and Ministry Renewal Energy have been the largest investor in recent years. Okay, so it means that we have the larger investors recent years. These are the larger investors in recent years. So now let's check what the question one. The question says, identify one benefit of foreign direct investment to an economy. The one of the benefit is that there's going to be job creation. There is going to be job creation. That it can be one of the advantages. So now the second question reads as follows: name the financial incentive provided by the government. Name the financial incentive. Name the financial incentive provided by the government to attract new foreign investors in South Africa. So what they are going to say is what? Less tax charge. So they are going to what? They are going to charge them less tax, and also they are going to what? They are going to give the subsidies. They are going to give the subsidies as well. Also, they will give a platform for those particular investors to give any donation to the existing South African economy. So the moment they give out their donation, it means that there's going to be lesser tax charge. For typical example, if you check big businesses like MTN, Total Sport, Engine, Shell, they have actually engaged in sponsoring soccer teams. Why are they doing that? They are sponsoring soccer teams because they want the government to charge them less tax rates. Okay, right. So now let's move on to 3.3. 3.3 addresses the issue of industrial development. So when we talk of the industrial development, we refer to what? We refer to improvement of the businesses that are selling the same product. Okay, right. So if you still remember grade 12, this one of the industrial development, I've been explaining it even in a previous question. So now I said it that South Africa is an economy. It has discovered that the secondary sector has the potential of contributing largely towards GDP. So that is why it has aimed at investing most of its funds under the secondary sector in line with the factories and the likes, because they have seen that that sector is one of the powerful sectors when it comes to absorption of South African labor. Job creations opportunities are much there available under industrial development. That is why an economy is aiming at improving such a sector. Okay, right. So now the next question we have 3.4. So 3.4 reads as follows: why is the manufacturing sector important to the economy? Manufacturing sector is important to the economy because that's the sector where goods and services are processed. That's the secondary sector. And as I said earlier, or in the previous question, that this manufacturing sector is the secondary sector, and there's a belief that this sector has a large contribution when it comes to creation of employment in South African economy. So now, why is the manufacturing sector important to the economy? Remember, grade 12, I did say it earlier that whenever we talk of an economy and economics, it means we refer to the household, we refer to firms, we refer to government as well as the foreign sector. So the moment manufacturing sector is powerful in that particular economy, it means that there is going to be the creation of job opportunities for household. Also, there is going to be a supply of finished goods or semi-finished goods to the service sector or to other sectors. Also, on the side of the government, the moment there is a manufacturing sector that is so powerful, it means that the government as well can be in the position to put their charge there as well, so that they can also have the tax proceeds, so that they can be able to give out transfers or grants to its inhabitants. Okay, right. So now let's move on to 3.3.5. So 3.3.5 reads as follows. Explain the vectors that may influence the success of the industrial development zones. So in South Africa, negatively. It says, explain the vectors that may influence the success of industrial development zones in South Africa negatively. So it means that the question, Christoph. So what I was actually trying to say is that whenever you are answering economics questions, you should always be in the position to understand what a question means or to interpret a question, because the moment you fail to interpret the question, there's going to be a huge challenge for you to understand how you must approach that particular question. Okay, right. If you take this question says, explain the vectors that influence the success of development zones in South Africa negatively. So it means we must check the vectors that prevent industrial development in South Africa. So if we check some of those vectors that we have poor management of the resources. The fact that there are poor management of resources in South Africa, so that is as well going to hinder the progress of industrial development zones. As well, if we check that here in South Africa, we have a lot of poor use of the resources, as well as poor managing of the resources. And if resources are poorly managed, and if resources they are not wisely used, so that means that that is going to stop or hinder the success towards industrial development zones. Okay, right. So now let's move on to the next question, which is 3.4. And 3.4, grade 12 reads as follows. Briefly discuss the term trade. Briefly discuss the terms of trade and the exchange rate as economic indicators related to foreign trade. Okay, so now when we talk of the foreign trade, it means now here we check the interaction of a different set of countries in line with the flow of goods and services. So now also we check whether there can be easy flow of goods and services amongst countries when we take into account the exchange rate as well as the terms of trade. Okay, right. The exchange rate, when we talk of the exchange rate, in order for what the foreign trade to be likely a success, it means that when the currency, one of the currencies compared to the other should be powerful currencies. And then the moment those currencies are powerful, or they allow one another to exchange in terms or in line with forex, then it means that for those countries to trade with one another is going to be not a struggle. Why? Because it can easily be not of a great challenge to convert one currency to the next. It means that for an economy of for the inhabitants of a particular country, to buy from another country or another economy, it is not a struggle for them to exchange the currencies or to convert the currencies. So the moment there's no struggle for them in terms of converting currencies from their origin currency to the currency of the countries where they will be dealing with the trade, then in that regard, there is going to be a trade or flow of goods and services amongst the different set of currencies. So now, in short, this exchange rate it addresses the easiest way to convert currencies when transactions are performed. It shouldn't be a struggle. There should be a flexibility. Okay, right. So now let's check terms of trade. So now here, what we are actually taking into account is that for each and every country to buy from another country, so there shouldn't be a lot of restrictions on exports or a lot of restrictions on imports. Meaning, if there are quotas, there shouldn't be too much heavy on quotas, or there shouldn't be too much custom duties to be paid. Okay, right. It means that there is an influence, or there is much influence towards much influence towards the flow of goods and services. Okay, right. So now let's move on to 3.5. Analyze the impact of low economic growth on South African economy. Remember, when you talk of economic growth, we refer to what? We refer to improvement of goods and services by businesses, improvement of production of goods and services by businesses. So if there is low economic growth, it means that processing or manufacturing of goods and services is very slow. So that means that there is going to be lesser profit attainment by businesses. So in that regard, businesses are not going to be able to expand. And the moment businesses are not able to expand, it means that there is going to be failure in terms of creation of employment opportunities. So also, the government is not going to be in a position to collect tax proceeds or tax revenues. And also, an economy is going to struggle to produce goods and services that are enough to supply to local people, as well as selling to other countries. Okay, right, grade 12. So now let's move on to the last question, which is question 4. We have 4.1. 4.1.1 reads as follows: name 2 characteristics of countries in the south. So if you still remember what we have the northern countries as well as the south countries. There is a belief that most of the north countries are countries that actually developed, but most of the southern countries are countries that are less developed. So now, if you check the characteristics of southern countries, those countries that are less developed, it means that there is higher fertility rate. There's also lower literacy level or literacy rate. Also, there is short life expectancy, and the likes. There's as well higher death rate, and as well as higher birth rate. Okay, right. So now let's move on to 4.1.2. How can an increase in the population income level increase the demands for imports? So the moment there is an increase in population, that is, how can an increase in the population's income levels influence the demand for imports? The moment local inhabitants or the household income is high, it means that now there's going to be a desire or a need for them to buy the normal goods, not the inferior goods. Most of the inferior goods, they normally spend on inferior goods when they have lesser income. But the moment household or the moment population has higher income levels, it means now there's going to be a demand for normal goods. And if there is higher demand for normal goods, that is going to influence most of the local people to demand to buy goods and services from other countries. Why is that the case? Because now they can afford to buy from those countries. They can even have money to pay even the custom duties. Okay, right. Let's move on to the next question. The next question we have 4.2. The 4.2 reads as follows: study the graph below and answer the question that follow. Effect of demand side and supply side policies. So if we check, we have aggregate supply, we as well have aggregate demand. Under economics, the moment we talk of aggregate demand or aggregate supply, we talk of the totals. So now the aggregate demand curve is downward sloping, showing that there is an inverse relationship between the price of a product and the quantity demand of the product. The higher the price, the lesser the quantity demanded. As well, we have the upward sloping of the aggregate supply, showing that there is a positive relationship between the supply of the product, the quantity supplied, as well as the price of the product. The higher the price of the product, the higher the quantity supplied. Okay, let's check 4.2.1. Identify the original equilibrium point in the graph above. So if we check the graphs above here, we have what we have this as the original what as our original supply curve, and then we also have this as our original demand curve. So it means that our original equilibrium is going to be at this point where we have Q and Q. Identify the original equilibrium point in the graph above. That's where we have Q comma P. So that is going to be our original what? Our original equilibrium at what? At point E. Okay, right. So now let's move on, grade 12. We move on to 4.2.2. Name one instrument of the monetary policy. One of the instruments of the monetary policy, we have the interest rate, as well as the money supply. We also have what you call money supply. Okay, right. So now let's move on to the second question, or the next question, where we have the business cycle. So the moment we talk of the business cycle, we refer to fluctuations, and we refer to fluctuations of the business activities, or we refer to upswings and downswings of the economic activities. Okay, right. So now let's move on to the next question. We have 4.2.4. How can competition stimulate aggregate supply? So, okay, right. So now the moment we talk of competition we refer to a situation where most businesses, they're selling the same product. It can either be with the same quality or the same quantity or the same price, but the fact is they're selling the same product. So now, how can competition stimulate aggregate supply? If there is too much competition in an economy, it means that there is going to be an influence or the outward shift of the aggregate supply from aggregate supply from AS to AS1. So in that regard, it means that the moment there is higher competition, that is going to influence an increase or the outward shift on the aggregate supply. Okay, right. Let's check out 4.2.3. 5. 4.2.5 reads as follows: explain the effect of demand side and then supply side policies on the general price level and the real output with reference to the graph above. So, okay, right. So now if we check here, the question wants us to do what? The question wants us to give the explanation. Explain the effect of demand side and supply side policies on the general price level and real output with reference to the graph above. Okay, right. Let's check the effect of demand side and supply side policies. Okay, if we check originally in this graph, we're having the original supply, aggregate supply curve as AS, and also we're having original aggregate demand curve as AD, and then the equilibrium was at E, meaning this was our first equilibrium. So now, if there is an increase on the demand side and supply side approach, that influenced prices to shift from P1 to P, from P to P1, and also that forced our quantity to shift from Q to Q1, making it equilibrium also to move from E to E1. Also, those prices, they do influence what the aggregate, it did influence what the quantity to move from Q1 to Q2. So that means that as well, the price is going to remain the same as what at P. So that is why we end up having this shift, and as well we end up having the shift under aggregate demand. Okay, right. So now let's check out 4.3. Identify the information below and answer the questions that follow. If we check here, we have the population is given there. We also have population demographics for South Africa in 2022. We have the population there. as well as the population as well. So now we also have a male as well as the female side. So now we have the age group under our y-axis, and then we also have our population percentage under our x-axis. So the question says, the question reads as follows: 4.3.1, identify the population percentage of females in the age group 15 to 65. So now let's check the age group between 15 to 65. Let's check, identify the population percentage. Population percentage, meaning we are going to check this side, population percentage of females in the age group 30 to 40. Let's check 30 to 34, meaning this is 30 to 34. So this is our 30 to 34. So now the question wants what? To check what the percentage of what to check the percentage of identify the population percentage of females in the age group 30 to 34. So now it means that the population percentage that we have is going to be 4.7%. So now our appropriate answer in this regard is going to be 4.7%. So now let's move on to 4.3.2. Give an economic term that refers to the population age group 15 to 65. That is economically active population. We have economically active population. So now let's check 4.3.3. Briefly describe the time life expectancy. When we talk of the life expectancy, we check out the number of years an individual is expected to live from the day they were born up until the day they die. Okay, now let's check 4.3.4. Explain the impact of malnutrition on the child mortality rate. So the moment there is malnutrition, it means that there's not a proper diet towards that kids. So the higher the malnutrition rate, then it means that we are going to have what? A higher mortality rate. So it means that the moment we have a lot of malnutrition or a lot of kids not eating balanced diet plate, that is going to cause the number of higher percentages in terms of the mortality rate. So now let's hear 4.3.5. Why is the population size important to businesses or the government? So the government and businesses have to know the number of the individuals that can be available, to come to buy or to come to support them. The government has to know the number of population size, so that whenever they draft the rules and the regulations or the policies, they should know the number of people or the number of inhabitants that they do have. So let's check 4.4. Discuss a special development initiative that South Africa and Cuba's efforts in regional development. So now, if you check in South Africa has a potential of exporting more of the manufactured goods and services to the other countries. That is why South Africa, it is actually advisable for them to always channel most of their monies, or to channel most of their assets, or to channel most of their resources towards the improvement of the industries, or towards the improvement of the secondary sector. So, okay, the last question, but not the least, analyze the relationship between the financial sector and the participants in the circular flow model. So the circular flow model, we refer to flow of production, flow of income, as well as flow of expenditure. So now, when you talk of the financial sector, we refer to what? We refer to the money market, as well as the capital market. If you still remember, under money market, that's where the short-term loans are being traded, but under the capital market, that's where the long-term loans are traded. So in short, if we have the powerful financial sector in our economy, it means that we are going to attract most of the foreign direct investment. And the moment an economy has most of the foreign direct investment, it means that local businesses are going to improve. Also, there is going to be a creation of employment. Section C reads as follows: answer any one of the questions in this section. So in your answer book provided. So now, if we check grade 12s, we have question 5. Question 5, we have the macroeconomics. So if you still remember grade 12, under this economics, we do have what we do have microeconomics as well as macroeconomics. So when we talk of the macroeconomics, we always refer to what we refer to an economy as a whole, while micro we only refer to individual firms. Okay, right. So now, grade 12, if you check this type of a question, this type of question, we have what we have, the question that carries 26 marks and the question that carries 10 marks. So already this is going to give you a lead on how best you can structure your essay. So here, what you need is to write an introduction. Already this introduction, grade 12, if you remember, under introduction, you should always give the definition of the concept under study. So in this regard, we are going to give the definition of a public sector. So now we also have the main body of the paper. And in this regard, our main body of the paper is going to be 26 marks question. So this is going to be our main body question. While this one of 10 marks is going to be our additional part of our essay. Okay, right, grade 12. Then from there, you should what? Provide with your conclusion. So if you still remember grade 12, whenever you write the conclusion, you are not expected to repeat whatsoever concept that you have discussed in your body, and also what you have discussed in your additional part, as well as the introduction. So now, as I said earlier, in this regard, we are going to check what we are going to check our introduction. So the introduction that we are going to have, we are going to explain what is a public sector or a state. So under introduction, you are going to say that the state is a body that governs and regulates the functioning of its economy. And it also plays a potential role in providing the economy with its basic important needs. So that explanation, you are going to get full 2 marks. I'll come again on under the introduction. Under the introduction, we say that the state is a body that governs or regulates the functioning of its economy, and also plays a potential role in providing its economy with its basic and important needs. So that is 2 marks. So now, moving on to the body, we are going to have main body, and then we are also going to have additional part. So now the main body, we are going to have what we are going to have those concepts that from the objectives of the public. So now we have mnemonics. So in this mnemonics that we have FEPE. We have FEPE. It means that one of the objectives of the public sector, number 1, is full employment. Number 2, we have economic growth. Number 3, we have price stability. Number 4, we do have economic equity. So now moving on to number 5, we have exchange rate. Okay, right, grade 12. So now let me explain this FEPE to you. When we talk of the full employment, this full employment, we check the full employment in a condition where all people are looking for a job and can find one. Also, we check the government should always be trying to attain high levels of employment in the country. Also, we check the current rate of unemployment is estimated as 27.6%. Okay, right. We also check that the rate of unemployment has unfortunately increased in South Africa over the past years. Also, we check the GEAR strategy was implemented by the government with the purpose to create a climate conducive to employment creation, mainly by the private sector. Okay, right. So now moving on to the objective of economic growth. Economic growth is referred to as an increase in the production of goods and services produced by the country in a specified time period. Okay, right. So now this economic growth is measured in real gross domestic product. So for economic growth to occur, economic growth rate must be higher than the population growth rate. Okay, right. So now this economic growth, if used for purposes of development, it improves the economic welfare of the country's inhabitants. When we talk of the country's inhabitants, actually we are referring to the households that are living in there, as well as the plants. Okay, right. So now we also have the objective of the price stability. So the South African Reserve Bank has implemented a policy of keeping inflation within the targeting rate of 3 to 6%. So still remember, if grade 12, surely grade 12, still remember that the target range of inflation in South Africa, it is between 3 to 6%. So now also we must check that the market economies produce better results in terms of growth and development if the inflation rate is actually stable. So interest rates are the main instrument used to stabilize prices. So the stable budget deficit also has a stabilizing effect on the rate of inflation. Okay, right. So now let's check economic equity as one of the objectives of the public sector. So redistribution of income and wealth is essential in the market economies. So the South African government uses the progressive tax system to redistribute income. So now taxes on profits, progressive income tax, and tax on wealth are taxes used to finance their public services and social security grants. So if you still remember, grade 12 here in South Africa, we have a lot of transfers. We have different set of grants. We have old age plans. We have unemployment plans. We also have grants for people actually having a child or child plans. Okay, right. So now, grade 12, we can also move on to an objective of the public sector, or the objective of the state as exchange rate stability. We need the stability when it comes to forex. Okay, right. So the government manages the economy through effective fiscal and monetary policies so as to stabilize the country's exchange rate. So depreciation and appreciation of the currency could create uncertainties for the currency and should always be limited. Okay, right. So South African government uses the free-floating exchange rate system. Why is it advisable for South African government to always use free-floating exchange rate system? Okay, grade 12. That is your assignment. Go visit different resources or go undertake your research, because on economics we always base ourselves on researchers or not assumptions. Okay, right, grade 12. So now if we check our additional part, we have to evaluate the impact of privatization of state-owned enterprises plus statals on the South African economy. So grade 12, if you still remember, in economics, when you talk of the economy, we refer to the market participants, which is household, businesses or firms. We also talk of the government as well as the foreign sector. So in this regard, the question needs us to give the impact, either be positive or negative, of changing government institution to become private institution. So now in most cases, grade 12, as you know that under public sector, we have the problem of this public sector. Most of the institutions under public sector, they do fail. Why do they always fail? Because of corruption, because of apathy, because of poor management of resources, also because of lack of skills in a governmental institution. So now, grade 12, if you know that the moment we change these institutions from being owned by the government towards being owned by the private, that is going to boost the economy of South Africa. How is that so? The moment the governmental institutions are now being operated or managed under the private sector, it means that there is going to be creation of employment opportunities for household. So in that regard, the standard of living for household is going to improve. And also on the side of the businesses, the moment there is flexibility of these institutions being managed by the individuals, so it means that okay, grade 12s. Okay. So now, as I said earlier, that whenever we are dealing with these governmental institutions are being changed to private institution, This is going to actually help the household in terms of the creation of employment, and also businesses. They are going to go to make a lot of profit, and also the government is going to be in the position to collect enough tax proceeds or enough tax revenue. After that, it can actually give out grants. Okay, right, grade 12. Also, we check the side of the foreign sector. Also, in the foreign sector, it means that local businesses are going to produce the excess of goods and services that is going to be sold to the rest of the world, or that is going to be sold to the other spheres of the world. Okay, right. So now, when it comes to conclusion, grade 12, in conclusion, we are actually going to say that in conclusion, it is very important that the state improves its functioning from time to time so as to avoid the economy's instability, so as to bring about the desired development. I'll come again on our conclusion. Remember, I told you that on the conclusion, you should make sure that you don't write on aspects or concepts that you have actually discussed in the body of your discussion or of your essay. So we said that under conclusion, we can actually approach it in this manner. It is very important that the state improves its functioning from the time to time, so as to avoid the economic instability, so as to bring about desired development. Okay, grade 12. So now we are done with our essay. So now let's move on to question 6, grade 12. If we check our question 6, grade 12, question 6 reads as follows. Discuss in detail export promotion as a South African international policy. If you still remember, I told you that this 26 marks is going to be your main body, and then for this 10 marks is going to be your additional part. So now you remember that you should only provide with your conclusion in this regard, and then your introduction. So under introduction, and make sure that you define or you give the definition of the concept under study. So now the question says, discuss in detail export promotion as South Africa's international trade policy. Grade 12, if you still remember, whenever we talk of the international trade, we refer to buying and selling of goods and services amongst the different set of countries. So now export promotion, this is nothing but we advocate for most of the economies or most of the countries to export more of the goods and services than they do import. So now our introduction in this regard is going to be as follows. Export promotion involves the government paying incentives or subsidies so as to promote the production of goods and services locally that can be exported. I'll come again. When you talk of the export promotion involves the government paying incentives or subsidies to promote the production of goods and services locally that can be actually exported. So now, if we check our South African international policy, we have to take into account some reasons as well as methods, and then the disadvantages of that. Okay, right, grade 12. So now, here, the reasons for international trade. One of the reasons is that export promotion measures lower the cost of production, which makes it easier to compete on the international market. Also, other reasons can be achieve significant export-led economic growth or value-added products. Also, another reason, export enlarges production capacity of a country because more and larger manufacturing industries are established or prices decrease through mass production. As well, we must check the first step to export-led economic growth is to implement policies that encourage the establishment of industries to produce goods and services for export market. Okay, right, Kritovs. So another reason can be export makes as much larger than domestic market, and we must drastically improve on quality goods to compete globally. So another reason can be exports are used to pay for the needed imported goods, which improves the balance of payment Another one, export promotion also leads to improved trade relations, such as for BRICS and the new Africa agreement. Okay, right, great talks. So now let's check the methods for export promotion. So exports are promoted through incentives, export incentives, including information on export market research with regard to new markets, concessions or transport charges, export credit and export credit guarantees, and publicity commenting on successful exporters. As well, exports are promoted through incentives will encourage manufacturers to export and increase volume of their production. Also, we have to take into account trade missions that help to market South African products abroad and supply South African companies with information about potential markets. Also, direct subsidies describes as a direct because it involves government expenditure. An example can be cash payments to exporters, refunds on import tariffs, and employment subsidies. So also the aim is to increase the competitiveness of exporting company so as to reduce the cost of production and export established overseas markets. Also, indirect subsidies are regarded as indirect because it results in the government receiving less revenue. An example, we have general tax rebates, tax concessions on profit earned from exports or capital invested to produce export goods or refunding of certain taxes. For a typical example, we have custom duties on imported goods used in the manufacturing process. Also, subsidies allows companies to lower their prices and enable them to compete in international markets. So also, a challenge for governments to design incentives and subsidies in such a way that prices of exports can be actually viewed as dumping prices. Also, trade neutrality. Trade neutrality can be achieved if incentives in favor of export promotion are introduced or to the point that neutralizes the impact of protectionist measures in place. For a typical example, subsidies equal to magnitude of import duties can be paid. As well, we check the export processing zones. Is free trade enclave within a protected area, is fenced and controlled industrial park that falls outside domestic customs area and usually located near harbor or airport. Also, we must check the disadvantages of this export promotion. Real cost of promotion, subsidies and incentives reduce total cost of production, which must be made from sales. Real cost is actually that's consumed by the subsidies, and products couldn't actually cannot compete in other open market. So also lack of competition, businesses charge prices that are low, that they force competitors out of the market. Increased tariffs and quotas can be against spread of provision of World Trade Organization. So overseas competitors retaliate with tariffs and quotas while goods are sold domestically below their real cost of production, export subsidies, and dumping. So in this regard, protection of labor-intensive industries, developed countries maintain high levels of effective protection of the industries that produce labor-intensive goods in which developed countries already have or can actually achieve competitive advantage. So as well, withdrawal of incentives often leads to closure of affected companies. Also, intense incentives are often led to inefficiency in the production process since companies don't have to do their best so as to compete. Okay, right, great talks. So now if we check our additional part in this regard, additional part reads, how can South African benefit from being part of the various trade protocols as the Southern African Development Community or SADC? So let's check how South Africa is going to benefit the moment it does globalize with other countries, the moment it does engage in different set of activities with other countries. Number one, there is going to be creation of employment. Number two, there is going to be transfer of skills. Number three, there is going to be improvement of production of goods and services. Number three, there is going to be a copy when it comes to the behavior of businesses when they use different set of technology. In short, there is going to be adaptation or copy or learning in terms of recent technology or technologies that are actually being used. So now, grade 12, let's check the conclusion of this essay that we have. So the conclusion can go as follow. South Africa's international trade policy facilitates globalization, thereby impacting positively on the balance of payment. I'll come again. South Africa's international trade policy facilitates globalization, thereby impacting positively on the balance of trade. Thank you very much, grade 12. Okay, right. So now, remember grade 12s, I always tell you that before you can jump onto answering questions, you should always make sure that you go through the set of instructions and information given. So now the structure of the question paper under economics, it has 3 sections. Section A, we have questions that are compulsory and they carry 30 marks, while in section B, we have 3 questions. You're expected to only answer 2 questions, of which 1 question carries 40 marks. While in section C, you're expected to answer only 1 question that carries 40 marks. So now moving on to the second instruction and information, answer only the required number of questions, and answers in excess of the required number will not be marked. So now we have number 3, the answers correctly according to the numbering system used in this question paper. So now this one, grade 12, is so important to be followed. Always make sure that you follow the numbering system answered on a question paper, in a question paper. I know most of you guys, you have the tendency of studying with section C, of which when you study with section C, make sure that you leave a space for other questions. Don't study with section C on the first page, because once you do that, it will be the indication that you would have failed to follow the instructions and information as expected. Okay, right. So now number 4, write the question number above as the answer or under each and every answer. Okay, right. 5, read the questions carefully. 6, start each question on a new page. I know most of you grade 12s, you have a challenge when it comes to studying a new question on a fresh page. Know that if you fail to follow the instructions, it means that you have failed to answer the questions appropriately. So 7, leave 2 to 3 lines between subsections of the question paper. So now also for 8, answer the questions in full sentence and ensure that the format, content, and context of your responses comply with the cognitive requirements of the questions. Number 9, use only blue or blue ink. Number 10, you may use a non-programmable pocket calculator. And the last but not the least, number 11, write neatly and legibly. Okay, right, grade 12. So now we have section A. As I said, that section A is compulsory and it carries 30 marks, and the expectation is to spend maximum of 20 minutes on this question. Make sure that grade 12s, you always time yourselves whenever you are answering economic questions. Okay, right. So now question 1 reads as follows. As in particular 1.1, various options are provided as possible answers to the following questions. Choose the answer and write only the letter from A to D. An example is given, and next to the question numbers, also have an example. There is 1.1.1 to 1.1.8 in the answer book provided. So the typical example, we have 1.1.9 is D, an option. Okay, right. So now 1.1.1 reads as follows. A deliberate action by the government to increase the value of currency is known as revaluation. So it means in this regard, our appropriate answer is going to be A. Okay, right, grade 12. So now moving on to the next question. Next question we have 1.1.2. 1.1.2 reads as follows. 1.1.2, business cycles that last from 7 to 11 years caused by the changes in net investment are known as Jagla. So grade 12, if you still remember, I always tell you that whenever you are dealing with questions under economics, make sure that you apply elimination method. You compare all the given set of options before you can select the appropriate answer that you think can help you to score more marks. Okay, right. So now moving on to 1.1.3, it reads as follows. The relationship between the tax rate and the tax revenue for the government is illustrated by the dash curve. So our appropriate answer in this regard is going to be B, which is the lever curve. Okay, right. So now moving on to 1.1.4, it reads as follows. If the value of the marginal propensity to consume is 0.6, then the value of the marginal propensity to save will be dash. Okay, right. So now this concept, I'm going to explain these two concepts, grade 12, marginal propensity to consume as well as marginal propensity to save. Why do I think there is a need to explain these two concepts? Because I've seen that most of you grade 12s, you have the challenge when it comes to the multiplier. And that multiplier calculation, if you still remember, it does engage in different set of the formulas so as to calculate the expected multiplier in each and every economy or nation or a country. So when we talk of the marginal propensity to consume, marginal propensity to consume, we refer to additional income that household choose to spend on buying goods and services. So this one should be clear, grade 12s, that marginal propensity to consume, it is that only an additional income. It has nothing to do with your salary. Okay, right. So now when it comes to marginal propensity to save, marginal propensity to save is nothing but an additional income that household choose to save or choose to put aside instead of spending on goods and services. Okay, right. So now, if you still remember, grade 12s, whenever we calculate the multiplier is always 1 minus the marginal propensity to consume, or also we can engage in this formula where we have 1 over marginal propensity to consume. If you check these two formulas, grade 12s, you can see that our denominator, we have MPC being equivalent to, MS, this is supposed to be as grade 12s. We have MPS, which is equivalent to 1 minus MPC. So if you check in this regard, the MPC that we have 0.6. So now, when you substitute, you are going to have 1 minus 0.6, then 1 minus 0.6 will take us to 0.4. So if you check the options given, the appropriate answer in this regard is going to be A. Okay, right, grade 12s. So now moving on to the next question, grade 12s, we have 1.1.5 and 1.1.5 reads as follows. A limit on the quantity of goods and services that can be purchased from other countries is known as import dash. Okay, right, grade 12s. If you still remember, in a previous lesson, I did explain different set of concept. For typical example, when you talk of a tariff is nothing but a certain tax that should always be paid to the government. Also, we have the incentive as well. If you still remember, we talk of whatsoever privilege that is actually given. Then we talk of a levy. Levy in this regard, we refer to a charge. So now we have a quota. A quota refers to a limit of quantity or a certain quantity that is allowed to be imported in a certain country. So it means in this regard, our appropriate answer is going to be D. Okay, right, grade 12s. So now let's move on to the next question, grade 12s. Our next question, we have 1.1.6, and this 1.1.6 reads as follows. A growth and development strategy that was intended to halve unemployment and poverty by 2014 was known as. So in this regard, our appropriate answer is going to be a B, which is Accelerated and Shared Growth Initiative for South Africa. So this is our appropriate answer in this regard, grade 12s. Okay, right. So now moving on to the next question, grade 12s, we have 1.1.7. of which this 1.1.7 reads as follows. The government's broad approach to industrialization is set out in the dash. So if you still remember, grade 12s, I always tell you that you must go through the set of options given before you choose your appropriate answer. And I always tell you the reason why I advise you to do that is because most of the given options, they are pretty similar to one another, where one might end up making some silly mistakes. Okay, right. So now 1.1.7, our appropriate answer is going to be National Industrial Policy Framework. Okay, right. So now let's move on to 1.1.8. 1.1.8 reads as follows. The increase in the population of cities and towns through the movement of people from rural areas is known as urbanization. So in this regard, our appropriate answer is going to be C. Okay, so now at this juncture, we are done with 1.1. Then we are landing on 1.2. So our 1.2 reads as follows. Choose a description from column B that matches the item in column A. Write only a letter A to I next to the question numbers and examples given there where we have 1.2.1 to 1.2.8 in the provided answerable. So now grade 12, if you still remember, I always tell you that whenever you are answering this set of questions, make sure that you go through column A and then you create a picture of the given concepts in that column. So now after that, you can now move on to column B, where you are provided with the description, the characteristics, the features, the functions, the explanation, the definition, and the likes. Okay, right. So now grade 12, whenever we talk of the autonomous consumption, so autonomous consumption, we refer to that part of consumption where the household are just spending without having a proper income. So now if we check the options given in this regard, our appropriate option is going to be H, that says part of the household spending that is independent of the level of income. So it means that our 1.2.1 is H. Okay, grade 12, so let's move on to 1.2.2. 1.2.2 reads as follows. The monetarist approach. So now grade 12, if you still remember, this concept, it does fall under the business cycle. And when we talk of the business cycle, we refer to the fluctuations of the economic activities, or we refer to upswings and downswings of the economic activities. Okay, right. So now under this business cycle, if you still remember, we have two theories, the theory from this monetarist approach and the theory from Mr. Keynesian. So now if you still remember, Mr. Keynesian states that in a market, for the market to be perfect, we do need a government intervention. So now, but these guys under monetarist, they're actually saying that we don't need the government to intervene when it comes to the flow of goods and services. Why are they actually saying that? They think, or they do believe that the market forces of demand and supply can stabilize the flow of goods and services. So if you still remember, these gentlemen or these guys under monetarist, they believe that the market can be stable without the government intervention. So now if we check the options given in column B, then we see that the appropriate answer in this regard is G, that says maintains the view that markets are inherently stable. So it means that now our appropriate answer in this regard is going to be J. Okay, right, grade 12. So now let's move on to the next question. The next question, we have 1.2.3, which is accountability. So now when we talk of the accountability, we refer to an explanation of one's own decisions and actions. When now you take charge of your actions or when you take charge of your decisions. So now if we check the list of options given in column B, the appropriate answer in this regard is going to be F. Okay, thank you, grade 12. Now let's move on to the next question, which is 1.2.4. So 1.2.4 reads as follows. Debt forgiveness. So now, from the word or from the phrase debt forgiveness, this really means that a country or an organization is released from its obligation to repay a loan. So now, remember, grade 12s, as I said earlier, that whenever you are answering or you are faced with this type of questions, you should always make sure that you go through each and every option given in column B, or you go under each and every description given. So now, if we check, the appropriate answer for 1.2.4 is going to be B. When an organization or a country is released from its obligation to repay a loan that is going to be debt forgiveness. So this country is being forgiven in terms of what? In terms of paying its obligations. So it means that this is going to be a bad debt because it is actually going to be written off before being settled. Okay, right, grade 12s. Now let's move on to the next option. The next option or the next question that we have 1.2.5 that reads as follows: economic union. So now, when we talk of the economic union, we refer to cooperation between countries so as to adopt to common monetary and fiscal policies. So now, if you check the list of the characteristics or features given, so the appropriate answer in this regard is going to be a C. Okay, right, grade 12. So now let's move on to the next question. The next question, we have 1.2.6, which reads as follows: capital formation. So now when you talk of capital formation, if you still remember under economics, this is nothing but an investment. Okay, right. So now if we check 1.2.6, which is capital formation, the appropriate answer for this question is going to be I, which reads the process of adding new assets such as machinery and equipment to an existing stock. So it means that our appropriate answer for this question is going to be I. Okay, right, grade 12s. Now let's move on to the next question. Next question, we have 1.2.7 that reads as follows: national research and development strategy. So now if you check the list of options given, the appropriate answer in this regard is going to be D, because the national research and development strategy focuses on using science and technology so as to promote industrialization in South Africa. Okay, right. So our appropriate answer in this regard is going to be D. Okay, right, grade 12. So now moving on to the next question, we have 1.2.8, which reads as follows: consumer price index. So now the appropriate answer for this consumer price index is going to be A, that reads an economic indicator that relates to the cost of living. Why are we saying it does?